Zimbabweans, good day citizens of Zimbabwe. My name is Mutasa, the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition Chairperson. We are here today to discuss about the crisis that is engulfing our country. Our nation is in crisis. And we've been discussing with different stakeholders. We've consulted a lot of organizations and individuals. We've also been looking at analyzing what sort of crisis we are going through. And in our view, our conclusion is that we are facing a crisis of governance. And this crisis of governance is manifesting at three different levels. So firstly, it's governance as in state-society relations, the way the state is treating citizens, the way the state has shredded the social contract between the state, those who are in power, and the citizens who are the sovereign in this country. So if you look at all the issues that have been going through, we can talk about the poor management of the elections, the electoral fraud. We can also talk about the persecution of both civic society activists and opposition politicians. You are aware of the abductions that have been happening to different sectors in this country. You are also aware of the taking away of our civic and political rights, the shrinking democratic space. Although we've got a progressive constitution, you can see that all our constitutional rights have been taken away. We've lost all our freedoms. Freedom of expression is gone. Freedom to assemble peacefully is gone. You can't even gather to petition. Freedom of association is not also excluded. But above all, we've lost our freedom to speak our mind. Freedom of expression is taken away completely. The few that are still speaking, they are doing so at a huge risk. And this is not a country that we desire to live in. The state is no longer accountable to the citizens. The citizens no longer have space to air out their views, to challenge government decisions. They no longer have a space to exercise their constitutional rights in terms of the Constitution. So this is a big challenge that we are seeing, a big crisis of governance, where the state has taken upon itself to give itself powers that are beyond those that are granted in the Constitution. Added to that, we are witnessing serious challenges with state institutions, the capturing and co-optation of state institutions. The institutions that are supposed to provide checks and balances to the state, your Constitution is gone. You have seen how the Constitution the Parliament was taken away from the opposition, and the Parliament is now under the wings of the executive, using pseudo-opposition politicians. There's nothing for citizens anymore in that Parliament. We cannot utilize that Parliament to provide the necessary checks and balances towards the executive. We've also witnessed massive challenges with the judiciary. Our judiciary, which used to be an envy of many in the region and in the continent soon after independence, is no longer independent the way we want it. You know how the courts, especially the lower courts and the magistrate courts, are being used to deny citizens basic rights like bail applications. You know how the courts are being used to persecute politicians and civic society activists, including trade unions, students' movement, even church leaders. So we cannot no longer rely on the judiciary to dispense justice. Instead of dispensing justice, it is dispensing injustice. And it is not without cause. You are aware of the challenges that we've had with the judiciary in terms of its independence, the reappointment of the Chief Justice. You are also aware of the many benefits that were coming from the executive without explanation to the judges. And you are also possibly aware of how the judges have been interpreting the law in our view, some of the judgments in a clearly partisan manner in terms of siding with the executive whenever citizens are challenging draconian practices by either the NPA or by the police. So again, we are losing faith in our institutions. We can't talk about the police, we can't talk about the National Prosecuting Authority. We have challenges and crises in all those spaces. But the crisis is also emanating at another level. Crisis is in public service provision. All of us are at risk. If you fall sick, you cannot get basic medical care at our general hospitals or at our private public hospitals or even local council hospitals. We have lost medical care that used also to be an envy of all. We used to accommodate people from Zambia, people from Malawi, people from Botswana, people from Mozambique coming to get medical care here. But now you have to go to Zambia, you have to go to Botswana, you have to rely on South Africa for you to get basic medical care. We have also lost out in terms of basic public provision. You talk about water provision, you talk about energy, electricity, you talk about education. Our education, which used to be top-notch, is also decaying. Our universities are no longer fit for habitation. We still have shortages of teachers, we have shortages of nurses. People are getting out of this country, our professionals, we are losing through brain drain. And this is a crisis of governance. The third level that we are also seeing this crisis is at the economic mismanagement. The level of high unemployment in this country, the informalization that is in this country, and also poverty, including those people who are at work. Majority of the people who are at work are also working poor. They can't make ends meet. All our professionals have been pauperized. The teachers that used to earn respect have lost all that respect. Most of the people that they teach no longer want to be teachers because the profession has lost its respect. Our doctors are earning salaries that we never thought such professionals would earn. Everyone is in trouble. And it is at this level, the economic mismanagement, that we are seeing a big and a lot of challenges. And one of the main challenges is corruption. If we could address corruption in this country, the scourge of corruption, if it is addressed, it will end almost half of our problems that we are facing. The Reserve Bank, Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson, they warned us before that in this country we are losing 1.8 billion annually through corruption, illicit financial outflows, smuggling of our minerals. If you go around this country, everywhere there is mining. People are taking our precious minerals out of this country. But there's nothing to show for our natural resources that are being exploited. Our roads are dilapidated. Our areas where they are mining those minerals, you can't find a clinic in those areas, you can't find hospitals, you can't find schools in those hospitals. So we are just losing. We think 1.8 billion is not a small amount of money. It is an amount that if it is saved or if it is pre-kept, we can address our medical care challenges, we can fund our hospitals, we can equip our hospitals, we can pay our public services. If we can save that 1.8 that we are losing through corruption, we can refurbish our schools, we can build new schools, we can equip schools with books, we can pay our teachers, we can pay our policemen, we can pay our other public services officers. So this is why, as Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition, we are making this call that everyone, wherever you are, you must stand up for Zimbabwe. And we've made this call to everyone because we know that all of us, all of you, everyone is affected in one way or the other. You are affected when you fall sick and you fail to get medical attention at Parirenyatwa, at Mpilo Hospital, or at Mutare General Hospital. You are affected when you send your kids to school and they do not get education because the teachers are incapacitated and are not reporting for duty. You are affected because when you send your kids to school, you expect them to have top quality education, but the schools have got no books. The schools have got no equipment, modern gadgets. You are affected because you are an employee of the government and you are earning so little. Many of you are earning around $300 when the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe food basket is around 500. You are affected because with corruption and endemic corruption, you will continue to earn poor wages. If 1.8 billion annually is saved, your salaries will be improved, your living conditions will be improved, and you are also affected even if you are not employed, because the 1.8 billion ought to have been used to make sure that we build our productive capacity, we create new industries, and we create more companies and more jobs. You are affected even if you are terminally ill, because your life is dependent on important medication. But because of corruption, endemic corruption, which is happening at a grand stage, in grand scale, you are facing the brink of death because the country may not be able to procure those necessary and important medication. So all of us, whether you're in private sector or public sector, we are all affected one way or the other. It did not be corruption. We should be secure and sufficiently getting electricity. The amount of money that we have used in electricity generation schemes that have become nothing because of corruption is huge. The amount of borrowings that we've made that have landed into the pockets of a few who are connected to the ruling elite is huge. So this is why we are making this call. What is the Stand Up for Zimbabwe call? It is a call to unite everyone in this country to fight against corruption, to re-establish a constitutional movement. We cannot fight back as citizens if we are not united and utilizing the constitutional rights and freedoms that are granted in our constitution, which is a legitimate thing to do. We need everyone from churches, we need students, we need youth organizations, women's organizations, we need politicians and political parties, we need all community-based organizations, all individuals in the diaspora organizations. We need to come together and say, how can we re-establish a nation that provides for its people and not provide for a few? We need to sit down and say, what is going to be the future of this country if all of us keep quiet and just observe a few plundering the national resources of this country? The only way we can fight back is to re-establish the constitutional order. It is the constitution that has been taken away, that has been shredded. We need independence in terms of the various arms of the state and various branches of the state. We need an independent parliament that cannot be controlled by one person and that cannot be controlled by the executive. We need an independent judiciary. We also need an independent media that is respected and whose rights are respected by all arms of state. We also need an efficient and responsible executive that listens to the citizens and operates the affairs of the state in terms of the law and in terms of good practice. And that can only be done if we build an active citizenry, a citizenry that can use the constitution to fight back and to fight for its right, a citizenry that can use the constitution to provide checks and balances to those who are in power, a citizenry, an active citizenry that can unite to re-establish the constitutional order in this country. And this is not subversive, This is legitimate because we get it from the Constitution. So, as Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition, we are calling on you today that spread the message that corruption is a cancer that must be stopped. And it can only be stopped by the people of Zimbabwe if we unite and fight against corruption. We need to stand up with you. We need to stand up with you in the tertiary education. We need to stand up with you, those who are in pension, who have served this country for more than 40 years, but have nothing to show. You have lost all your pensions, they've been wiped out. You earn $10 or $15 a month that cannot even take you back to your rural home. You need to stand up and reestablish the constitutional order. We need to stand up with you, the women organizations who are bearing the huge cost of poverty in this country, providing unpaid work, caring for many of your family members who are failing to be admitted in hospitals or who are being admitted in hospitals but not getting the medical care that they should get. We need to stand up with you, people who are living with disabilities, who are also suffering under usurious taxes, but the government is failing to provide for your assistance. We need to stand with you, the workers of Zimbabwe, who are toiling daily, but failing to get something that is commensurate with the effort that you are putting at work. The majority of us workers of Zimbabwe are working poor. You are going to work every day, but you can't even provide food security for your family. You're failing to provide rentals. So we need to stand up with everyone in this country and ensure that we provide and re-establish the constitutional order, fight against corruption. We believe the government's policy has always been that they have got zero tolerance for corruption. And what we are doing as citizens in standing up for Zimbabwe is aiding in achieving that objective of the government. So we don't expect the government to fight against citizens who are fighting against corruption. So this is the call that we are making. You need to stand up for your country, Zimbabwe. Don't stand up for your political party. You need to stand up for your country, Zimbabwe. Don't stand up for your sectarian narrow interests. Stand up for Zimbabwe, for posterity and for our survival. Thank you.
Chairperson, there's been accusations that this campaign is a political campaign. Is it a political campaign?
This is not correct. This campaign is a citizen campaign. It's a constitutionally provided for that this country is based on constitutional democracy. And in constitutional democracy, the central pillar of it is citizen participation. So we are not making a political call, we are making a citizen call. We want everyone, including those who are in some peer, who abhor corruption, who do not agree with corrupt tendencies, to be part of it, including those who are in government, who daily say they have got a zero tolerance against corruption. We want them to join and stand up for Zimbabwe in fighting against corruption. We need joint solutions to fight against corruption. So it is a citizen-based call and a citizen-based movement to re-establish the constitutional order in this country.